Hey, thank you. And again, good morning, everyone. We're going to talk about Jamf Now today. And just for a quick show of hands to see who I'm talking to, who already uses Jamf Now in the audience? A few, awesome. And who's curious to learn more about Jamf Now? All right, hopefully I can satisfy both those groups. So my name's Tad Johnson. There we go. I'm the director of product strategy for the Jamf Now product, and I'm happy to say this is my 10th year at Jamf. I've been to all 10 JNUCs except for one that I missed when I was working in our Amsterdam office. But it's been exciting to see the growth and the change here at Jamf. It's been really exciting to see as JNUC has grown out of that little gathering of 100 or so people above the pizza place into what it is today. And I'm glad that all of you are here to learn a little bit more about Jamf Now. So what I want to cover today is really kind of give you the context of why does Jamf Now exist? What's the difference in how we build Jamf Now that is different from Jamf Pro or Jamf School or other products? How does that fit into the product mix? And then I'm going to talk a lot about who it's for. And this is kind of the part of the story of why, is we're building Jamf Now for a different audience or a different buyer than our other products. We'll talk a little bit about what it does, and then what you can do next if you want to learn more. So the story of why does Jamf Now exist? I'm going to start with this little stat. I did a little research on pulling out stats of who is a small and medium business, and I just looked at the two largest markets that we serve, the European Union and the United States. And in those two markets, there are about 7.5 million small businesses that are at least 10 employees, so excluding the single or micro business, up to about 500 employees in a medium-sized business. And that accounts for about 40% of the overall private sector employment. So the only reason I like to start this is that small business really makes up a much larger part of the global economy than we often think about, but they're not always as obvious, because most small businesses are a single location or a few locations. They're typically local or regional rather than national or international. And so while it's a huge part of the economy, it's often a part that we don't notice on a day-to-day basis. In all these businesses, there's a unique set of needs as well. Especially on the smaller side of the small and medium business, what we find is that most of those organizations don't have a dedicated IT group. They're not at the scale yet where they can have a dedicated IT team who's focused on all their technology needs. And so those tasks of managing IT devices falls on someone who's doing some other part of the job, the operations director, the marketing director, the sales director, the business owner. And in any of these cases, what we're finding right now is that there's a really interesting kind of technological transformation going on, which is small and medium businesses are using mobile devices, iPads, iPhones, MacBooks, along with purpose-built apps to transform some part of their business. So it's impossible to capture all of the variety of small business in one slide, or let alone in one presentation. But here are some of the archetypes that we see and that we're serving today with Jamf Now. So the modern office, think of that as your the knowledge worker type office where you've got a bunch of employees, they all need their email, they all have to get on Wi-Fi, they all need to make sure that their data is secured. And that could be anything from a law office to a creative marketing agency to a startup technology company, or anything in between. And we see this as a huge part of the customers that come to us for Jamf Now fit this model of, hey, they've got, it's not about the type of work they're doing on their devices, but they've got the basic IT needs. Moving over, in the food service industry, a really interesting thing is happening right now. You've probably seen it, where you go into a restaurant and there's an iPad that's serving duty as the point-of-sale device. Or maybe the wait staff are carrying around iPhones or an iPad mini, and they're actually placing an order on a mobile device that's instantly sent back to the kitchen. Or maybe you've seen that there's this explosion of food delivery companies, and almost all of those use a mobile app as the way to communicate with the restaurants. So if you're on Uber Eats and you want to place an order, that order is getting delivered to an iPad that's at the restaurant. And in all these cases, these are, it's a new technology need, but if you imagine the food service business, it's not, managing mobile devices is not their primary function, and chances are they don't need a dedicated staff just to handle those devices. In the case of healthcare, there's an explosion of smaller clinics that are handling things like the chiropractic clinic, the small dental clinic, the imaging clinic, where they have all the same privacy and security needs of a large hospital system, but they don't have, again, they don't have the staff or they don't have the specialization to be able to afford an entire team who's managing those devices. And again, what's great about this is that we're seeing a large number of app vendors who are serving this segment in particular with apps that they can use to help make their practice more efficient and deliver a better service. With field services, this can be anything from the person that comes to install the cable line into your house, the plumber, the electrician, the roofer, the carpet layer. Imagine all those different businesses that involve one or several people on a truck that drive out to your house or your place of business, do some work, and then drive on to the next one. And here, there's a huge opportunity. If you imagine the old way of doing things was you'd go out with your clipboard with the notes of what you had to do that day. You would fill out the page to say, okay, here's the service I completed. You'd try to get a signature. You'd bring that back to the home office. They'd send out an invoice. Maybe you'd get paid, maybe it wouldn't. By digitizing that, you can collapse a lot of that so you have immediate response in terms of delivering a service, in terms of checking for inventory, in terms of fulfilling the service order. And ideally, you can be more efficient. Then you can see 5 customers a day instead of 4. In the hospitality and retail sectors, we see a similar story from food service, where mobile devices are being used to improve the customer experience, to make the employee experience more efficient, and to deliver a better customer experience all the way around. So in all these, the common theme here is that we have a mobile app transformation that's going on, meaning a business-specific app is being used to satisfy a particular pain point or to improve a particular business process. And along the way, it's satisfying or it's improving the lives of 3 key constituents. First, imagine the employee experience. As an employee, if I have a mobile app that has all the customer details at my fingertips, that has all the inventory that I can sell, that has all the tools I need to actually complete an order and even collect payment, I can be much more efficient. And if I'm more efficient as an employee, I'm going to be able to deliver a better customer experience. I'm cutting out wait times. I don't have to say, hey, I'll mail you that order, or I'll submit this and I'll hopefully get back to you in an hour. If we can improve the employee experience with an app that gives them all the tools they need to do their job, then we're going to improve the customer experience as well. And if we can do that, that's going to have an impact on the overall operational efficiency of the business. And this is where we're starting to benefit the business owner, the business managers. If we're able to be more efficient as employees, and if we're able to give a better customer experience to our customers, that means that we're either more efficient in the sense that it doesn't take as many hours for an employee to do that job, or it might even allow us to deliver our goods or deliver our service at a more competitive cost. We can lower that cost of what it costs us to deliver it, and then we can turn that back into a benefit for our customers or for our employees. So we see a nice little feedback loop here where as we're in this era of mobile app transformation, we can improve the employee experience, we can improve the customer experience, that leads to improved operational experience, and then that feeds back nicely into more resources that the business can invest in their employees. Ideally, this means that they're able to solve another problem in that mobile app transformation. So if they started off with, hey, I really need to solve my point of sale device. All right, I'm going to go out, I'm going to get my Square app, I'm going to load all my products in there, I've got an iPad so I can do point of sale. Now I have an accurate point of sale and inventory system for my small business. Once I've solved that problem, now I can go out and solve another one. So maybe my next problem to solve is I want to manage employee time scheduling in a more efficient way. I want to make it really easy for my staff to trade or share the shift work that they have to do so that there's never a question of what time am I at work, and I can move off of the printed out piece of paper in the back room. So as we're seeing this, this is really the driver behind what's going on in the transformation of small business, and this is really the motivator of why does Jamf Now exist. So when we think about Jamf Now, The key difference or the key distinction with Jamf Now is that we're building this so that any organization can use it. Whether you have 1 employee or 1,000 employees, you can use Jamf Now. We've tried to reduce the barrier to entry to be as absolutely low as we possibly can make it. As I said, any size of organization. And that's not just, not just thinking about the number of devices that an organization has to manage, but thinking about their own internal organization. Is there a dedicated IT team or not? Is this something that someone can dedicate 1 hour to every week, or is it something that they can dedicate 10 hours a week? We can accommodate any size of organization, and we can accommodate any level of IT management. And what you might see is, why is there so much overlap between what Jamf Now does, what Jamf Pro does, and what Jamf School does? And this is really the distinction, is that we're trying with Jamf Now to make an entry point that's open and available to anyone, and that any organization can take advantage of. So how do we do that? What's different? The biggest difference with Jamf Now is that we have very consciously and very carefully curated the mobile device management features and the mobile device management workflows that we've added into Jamf Now. And along the way, as we've done that, the key priority is ease of use. So this is not an easy challenge. This is something that it's really easy for me to put this on a slide and to stand up here and tell you, hey, this is what we do. But in reality, this is really tough, because at any given day, we hear from customers who say, hey, we like Jamf Now, but we really wanted to do these 2 more things. And then at the same time, we hear from customers who say, hey, we really like Jamf Now, but it's too hard to use. And so finding that balance of exactly what is the right balance of ease of use with the more powerful features, it's a challenge. But thankfully, inside of Jamf, because we have Jamf Pro and because we have Jamf School, that gives us on the Jamf Now team the freedom and the ability to really be as curated as we like, and really to focus just on those key features that are going to be most beneficial to the most users. In the delivery of Jamf Now, we're delivering this as a purely on-demand SaaS product. So that gets back to that any size, any scale. There's no minimum of who uses Jamf Now. You can sign up and you can have 1 device, and that's great. Or you can sign up and you can have 1,000 devices, and that's great too. We've designed this so it's really efficient. I'll touch on that a little bit later, but we've designed this so it's as efficient as possible from our side, which means we're under no pressure to say, hey, everyone has to have at least 10 devices for us to make money. We don't have that concern. We've also, the flip side of the curated MDM experience is that we've also started to add opt-in power features, which means if you are that customer that calls us up and says, hey, we like Jamf Now, but we wish that it just did 1 more thing, we're now starting to add those 1 more things behind an opt-in flag, so that only those customers who want that are going to see that show up in their product. And what's neat about this is that we're delivering this as a single product experience. So when you log into Jamf Now, everyone logs into the same Jamf Now. But depending on whether you have opted into our power feature set or the standard set, you're going to see a slightly different list of options. And that changeover, that opt-in process, is nearly instantaneous. So if you log into Jamf Now and you say, hey, I'd really like the ability to deploy custom app packages, you can do that. Just go into your account, flip the flag, and then you'll see those new features show up. And then last is we've prioritized monthly billing as the way we go to market with Jamf Now. And while it drives my finance team a little bit crazy, because it means that we're processing a whole lot of orders throughout the year, 12 times more than we would if we were doing an annual order. The benefit of doing monthly billing is that it allows us to deliver on that promise of true on-demand, meaning we're only going to charge you for how much you're using it. We have some customers that are seasonal, and so during their high season, they have a bunch of devices enrolled in Jamf Now, and during their low season, they have none. And we charge them during their high season, and they don't pay anything during the low season. We've done this so that we can really align with the small and medium business customer. As you can imagine, when you're running a small business, cash flow is key, and knowing how you can predict how much cash is coming in during the month, how much cash is going out during the month. It's a key part of keeping that business healthy. And so even though it's a little more work on our part, we've made monthly billing a priority for Jamf Now so that we can make that really easy. All right, let's look a little closer at what is going on inside Jamf Now. So this is the first screen you'll see when you log into Jamf Now. This is our inventory display. And for anyone who's familiar with our other products, it'll look a little familiar. We've shared kind of that design language. We've shared some of the color palettes across our products. But I want to highlight a couple key differences. One thing, if you look on the left side at the navigation menu, you can see there are 9 options. And that's it. That's all. This is part of that curating the MDM experience. We don't want this to be a tool that you have to read a manual before you can use. We don't want a tool that has a steep learning curve. So we've really tried to simplify and combine concepts as much as possible so that what you see here is, this is the tool. This is what's out there. The other thing we've done is tried to use iconography and visual feedback as much as possible. So if you look at the nice inventory display here, at a one-moment glance, you can identify exactly which one of those is a laptop, exactly which one of those is an iPad, exactly which one of those is an iPhone. We're doing this because we want this to be, again, an inviting tool that's easy to use and that doesn't require any pre-knowledge of technical jargon, let's say. So if you log into this, even if you've never heard of MDM, if you've never done anything remotely related to managing IT devices, you can identify what it is that I'm looking at here. And then along that same line, we've tried to layer in information about what's going on with the devices in your system without being too heavy-handed. So it might be a little hard in this smaller screen, but several of these devices have a little red dot in the corner. And that's our indication that says, hey, this device might need a little more attention. We're not going to put up it's not an emergency, nothing's broken, nothing's on fire. But typically what happens here is, here's a device that might not have checked in with the Jamf Now server for a while. So that device is either off the network, it might be powered off, it might be broken. Maybe someone smashed the device on their way out and that hasn't checked in. But it gives you a hint to say, hey, here's a device that you might want to look at in more detail. And then if I were to click on one of these, I would follow that red dot into the more detailed inventory so I could identify exactly what issue I might need to resolve. Since I've talked so much about the mobile app transformation, let's talk a little bit about how we approach apps in Jamf Now. So we think that getting the right business-oriented apps onto your devices is a key part of the success story of that mobile app transformation, and it's a key part of the Jamf Now story. So the first time you log into Jamf Now, if you go over to your app library, you can see I'm on the top bar there, I'm on the recommendations tab, and without having myself as a user, without having to do anything, I can see a bunch of apps that have already been populated here, recommended to me. And what we're doing at Jamf is we're going out and we're finding the apps that are most useful for an organization depending on which industry they're in. So in this example, I took a screenshot of a construction industry. And so we're recommending a few apps like Procore, like PlanGrid, like FieldWire, ServiceTitan, that are all related to that construction or field service industry, along with some apps that are common across everything. The Apple Support app is going to be common across any business. Box, DocuSign, those things are available for everyone. And we don't expect that a small business is going to log into Jamf Now and that's the first time they've ever heard of these apps. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're able to surface the useful apps that we've discovered through working with thousands of small businesses around the world, and hopefully recommend that one more app that might help someone to fill in a gap in their small business workflow. And of course, once I find an app that I want to add here, it's really easy for me to add this to my app library and then deploy that to my devices. So we can connect the dots between discovery all the way through to deployment without requiring a lot of extra steps in between. Speaking of the steps in between, the blueprint framework is the way that we've condensed a few different concepts of device management into one easy-to-understand object. So if you're familiar with Jamf Pro, the blueprint is like a combination of a static device list and a series of configuration profiles scoped to that device list, and a series of apps scoped to that device list. But the simplicity of Jamf Now is we've eliminated all of those separate objects, and so it all flows into one blueprint concept. So inside of a blueprint, I list which devices do I want this to apply to, I list which apps do I want to install, and then I list which settings do I want to go on those devices. And it's easy for me to figure out which blueprint is controlling the device that I happen to be looking at, because every device can have one and exactly one blueprint. Now, this is an example where this is right on the knife's edge of, are we curating too far? Are we offering enough flexibility? Because what we hear from a lot of more advanced Jamf Now users is, hey, we really want the ability to do more than one blueprint on a device. And there's good reasons for it. You know, there is some convenience that would come in from saying, you know, here's my blueprint that's for everyone, and then here's my specialized blueprint for just that device. But we've held the opinion that the benefit of making it so simple that we know exactly which device is on which blueprint outweighs that alternate workflow, and we'll continue doing that right until we find a better way to do it. So inside of a blueprint, this is what you see. Inside of a blueprint, you can see right under operations. Operations is the name of my blueprint here. And again, to try to keep things simple, there's what is that, 10, 12 items that I can configure. And that's the entirety of the blueprint. So within one view, even if you're on a really small screen, within one view, you can see everything that's out there. And here's where I go through and I can configure the apps I want to deploy. If I want to deploy web clips, I can do it there. We've broken apart the configuration details into categories that are hopefully more familiar. Like, we've tried to use terminology that's more familiar to a novice user. So if you want to configure security settings, you go to security. If you want to configure email, you guessed it, in email. The one place where we've gone a little bit into more detail is on this restrictions category. And if you've ever looked at Apple Configurator, if you ever made a configuration profile with restrictions, you might know that let's say the native implementation of this is a list of checkboxes that's about 110 items long, and some of them are nested because they have dependencies. And that's a little bit tough. That's a little unfriendly to navigate. So what we did is, first we put on our curator's hat, and we tried to go through that list of 110 restriction items and try to pull out the most useful restriction items that the most people are gonna find useful. And then we reshuffled and recategorized these so that it's more easily discovered. So if I want to manage my iCloud restrictions and I want to configure whether or not my devices upload all their photos to iCloud, I can click on my iCloud button here, expose all those settings. I can change the ones I want. I can hit save, and I'm done. This is how we're trying to bridge that gap. We're trying to flatten out the learning curve as much as possible to make it really easy for people who aren't already in the IT space to start to use some of these tools and use the restrictions that they are going to find most useful in their business. One other, as an example of our opt-in power feature, we recently added the ability to upload and deploy a configuration profile that doesn't get built inside of Jamf Now. And this is one of those it's an opt-in feature, so when you sign up, you don't see this option, but you can turn it on with the Jamf Now Plus feature tier. And the idea here is that for all those customers that have a one more thing requirement, so some examples are a VPN configuration. You know, we don't have VPN as a native configuration inside of Jamf Now because there's so many different combinations of VPN providers out there, and everyone requires a little bit different. A lot of them require certificates and things like that that are a little more advanced. But we know that that's a very common requirement, especially for businesses that have employees that are traveling with their mobile devices. So what we did is we added the ability to, you can build a configuration profile somewhere else, whether that's Apple Configurator. There's a few open source tools that are really handy. You could even build it inside of another MDM like Jamf Pro and download it. But you build a configuration profile. You drop that on your on the web browser here. It automatically uploads into Jamf Now, and then I can add that into my blueprint along with everything else. So we've tried to do this in a way that accommodates that more powerful use case, accommodates the more advanced workflow, but again, does it without sacrificing the ease of use and the user-friendly aspect of Jamf Now. And then one more I'll share is we recently added the ability to configure and choose which setup steps you're going to show during automated device enrollment. Because again, this is one where we heard from a lot of our customers that they really liked using automated device enrollment. The Apple Business Manager, as that has matured, it's a lot easier to use. We're encouraging all of our customers to use Apple Business Manager. They're hearing the same thing when they're purchasing devices from the Apple retail store or from their mobile carrier. They're hearing about this. So they want to use the automated device enrollment feature. We've now added the ability to toggle or turn on and off exactly which screens they see. So they can custom tailor that experience to make sure that they have all the options they need. So if, for example, if you're using Apple IDs and iCloud in your business, then you want to be sure that you show that screen during setup to log in with the Apple ID. But if you want to turn those off, then you can easily hide that and make the setup all that much simpler. So along the way, you've probably heard me say this a few times, but that idea of the curated MDM, we're trying to balance. We're trying to balance the needs of a more advanced IT workflow with the needs of a small business owner who wants to get their iPad set up with the right apps they need to be productive. And from my perspective and working with our product team, this is probably the hardest part of building Jamf Now. It's easy to say yes. It's easy to say, hey, there's a new feature that just got released in the latest Apple OS. Let's add that to our product. No problem. The hard part is to figure out, is that something that's going to be used by the type of customers we're serving? And is it something that we can deliver in a way that's user-friendly and easily discoverable? And this is the challenge that we're embarking on. But thankfully, we've got a really excellent product team that's working on this, excellent software engineers, and hopefully, if you're using Jamf Now, hopefully we're delivering on it for you as well. Since I mentioned the on-demand SaaS nature and the scalable nature of Jamf Now, I thought I would just briefly mention a little bit behind the hood, or under the hood rather, of what are we using? How are we pulling this off? So everything in Jamf Now is powered by Amazon Web Services. If you haven't looked at Amazon Web Services lately, it's a truly incredible product or a series of products, and you can do just about anything. That means that it's globally available. It means that it's highly performant. It means that there's never a single point of failure for the product to go down, and we can scale up and scale down as needed. So really, give us all your devices because we can handle it. We use a couple of other tools. If you're at all interested in the DevOps side of things, I'd really encourage you to check these out. Kubernetes is a product that helps us to orchestrate how many different services we're running to handle a particular amount of load. So in that example where, let's say we get a bunch of customers who all log on and they all want to enroll some new devices and add some new apps and add some new products, we can dynamically scale up the Jamf Now services to accommodate that, and it doesn't even require anyone putting hands on the keyboard. It's automated now so that it can handle those spikes in traffic natively. We're using a product called Apache Kafka to handle the communication between these different services. So as that Kubernetes thing scales up the number of services, now there's 12 or 24 different services that need to talk to each other. Thankfully, we have Apache Kafka so that it can communicate all between them. And we're using a really slick tool called Spinnaker, which helps us to automate the build and deployment so that whenever we're adding a new feature to Jamf Now, we can reliably deliver that in a way that doesn't introduce downtime, that doesn't introduce, that we don't have to turn Jamf Now off in order to update it. And we can do this quickly enough that we can deliver new capabilities and bug fixes several times in a given week. The other part we delivered on, or the other part that all these technologies help us deliver, is the instant sign-up nature of Jamf Now. So if you, after the presentation here, or right now, if you're feeling eager, you can visit signup.jamfcloud.com, and you'll see a sign-up form like this. And the moment you sign up, you now have an account on Jamf Now. It might take a few seconds for the archaic world of SMTP email relays to deliver your activation email to you, but that's really the only delay in the sign-up process. As soon as you hit get started, your account now exists, and now you can start using Jamf Now. And this is something that it really helps us to take away any of that extra complexity. If you think you might want to use Jamf Now, sign up, and then you'll find out if it's right for you or not. This has really been the part that's been the most fun for me, is to see in a daily basis, we can see how many people signed up, where did they go next, what happened, are they still using the tool, and it helps us to communicate that value of immediacy that Jamf Now offers. So what's next? Today there's about 1.5 billion active Apple devices in the world. That's a lot. And since I've been talking all about the mobile app transformation in small business, I think it's fair to say that we're still just in the early phases of that. If you imagine, go back in time, the iPhone was released in 2007, so we're on our 12th year of iPhone. The iPad was released in 2010, so it's been about 9 years. We're going on 10 years. The Apple Watch is, about 4 or 5 years old now. And looking out above the horizon, looking at other companies like Oculus or like Magic Leap, there's this whole other chapter of augmented reality that we haven't even really figured out what it means yet. But the point that we see is that the mobile app transformation in small and medium business especially is still in its early days. There's still a ton of problems to be solved. There's going to be another 1,000 great business apps that haven't even been written yet. And along the way, our goal with Jamf Now is to help connect those dots, to help be the connection point between the great hardware and OS that Apple delivers and the really great apps and services that thousands of developers around the world can deliver. We want to be the connection point to help small businesses succeed in the world and improve their employee experience, improve their customer experience, and thrive and grow as a small business. So regardless of where you are in this, or where the business is in this broad category, we're here to help that along and make these small businesses successful. So with that, I'm going to say thank you. I do have a few minutes left, so if anyone has a question, I'd be happy to take it. And we have microphones on the sides of the room here, and since we are recording this, I would appreciate it if you could ask into the microphone.
If that's not an option, I can also bring a microphone to you as well. So.
All right. Thank you. Oh, we do have one. Yes.
Question?
Yep, it's on now.
All right. So another use case, maybe, as I have aging parents who are in different locations. Have you seen anybody going this route to be really just managing their own family, their houses of iPad that they have, whether or not it's all local, or are those hands up saying, yes, you do that? Because I'm sitting here listening and thinking, this would be a great way to remotely help my parents.
Yeah, we do see that. I would say that there are some limitations just inherent to the way that the Apple services work, where if you're not in a business, for example, you can't take advantage of Apple Business Manager, which means you can't have the same depth of management. But beyond that, go nuts. And if you have 3 or fewer devices, Jamf Now is totally free, and beyond that, it's only $2 a month per device. So if you're looking to manage a handful of family devices, I say do it, and you can use the exact same kind of tools and workflows that you would in a small business. And we know that this is happening. We have these. We don't market it for that purpose, but yes, it does happen, and I encourage you to do it. All right. Thanks.